The computer on the left you have seen before. The computer on the right I got today. This computer here, funny enough, was the star of the show in a video that got taken down due to a false copyright claim. Fortunately, that has since expired. For those of you who do not remember, this is an IBM Thinkpad T42P. So we watch the slow zoom into this thing. Probably should have used the JVC camera instead of this Panasonic, but oh well. To recount, and I'm trusting my memory here, probably a bit too much, this thing has got a Pentium M 1.8 GHz processor, 2 GB of RAM, DDR, an 80 GB IDE hard drive, and when I was done with it and shelved the unit after the motherboard failed, it had a, I think it was running Windows Server 2008. But that's the story with this one. That's really it. Not much else I can do. I can't really demonstrate it on video. The one on the left here I bought today at a Salvation Army. And we're going to have a little bit of discussion about thrift stores here in a minute, after I get the tripod out, because this camera is a little bit on the heavy side, and I would rather have a tripod. There are two main thrift store chains around here. There's another thrift store I've been made aware of by somebody else who was talking about it. I don't know exactly where it is. It's on the other side of town, I know that much. And I'm not in a hurry to go there, so I guess there's one thing. There's Value Village, which is the main one. That's the one that's over here that I go to the most often. Then there's the Salvation Army. You see, the problem with either of these is that it really, the quality of the store varies wildly. The local Value Village is a great store. The local Salvation Army, on the other hand, is not. We'll put it that way. The Salvation Army, which is what I'm going to focus on here because this came from the Salvation Army, not that store, is filled with cheap crap that, if you ask me, is just simply overpriced. And that's not to say that, you know, the Value Village, or I guess in the U.S., mostly U.S., they call it Savers, and I think Unique is also under the same chain, I think, but I'm not 100% positive on that. You see, the problem is, it just varies wildly between the stores. The one that I would go to that's close to work, they've got the selection of electronics is pants. We'll put it that way. And the prices on things are even worse. I bought an alarm clock there the first time I went in. That set me back about $5. Okay, I can accept that. Second clock I bought there was $7. For the most part, you will not find a clock or a clock radio or anything like that in that store that is less than $7, unless it's truly a piece of plastic crap. I did buy a laptop there for $20, which I don't think was too bad. I can fix that. But for the most part, it's just stuff that I will never use. It's stuff that's broken. And I say this, I saw a Denon, what was that thing? It would have been some kind of stereo receiver. They had it priced at $60. It wasn't even in that great a shape. It was scuffed and scratched and looked at it and thrown around, really. And they wanted $60 out of it. And it's just highway robbery, if you ask me. But anyways, I digress. I took this morning off of work, so I decided to do a couple things I don't know, go to a couple places that I don't normally get the chance to. So I went all the way across town. And I visited the two thrift stores that were on that end of town. Well, actually, I was only going to visit the Value Village at first, because I didn't think I would have time to do anything else. Because it took 2 hours to get over there. So I went in, I looked at what they had. I wasn't really impressed. I still bought stuff though. One of those things was this. It's a cheap piece of junk here. It looks exactly like the one from West Germany. Well, not exactly. It looks really close. It's got a second hand on it. Although, The big difference being that it is, where is it? I don't know where the thing said, but it says, oh, there we go. Made in China. Oh, no. And it was probably priced a little bit too high. Took a big chance on it because the sticker was originally, the reason why this sticker is in such a crappy condition was because they originally had it over top of the battery compartment. I hate it when stores do that. You know, they put the sticker right over top of the battery compartment so you can't see if there's a battery in there that's leaked. And initially I actually made them an offer on it. I said I don't really want to pay $3.99 for it. I'll pay a little bit less, maybe $1.99 or $2.99. And they didn't take me up on it, but I decided, you know what? There's a good chance that it does still work, and it's a pretty neat thing. And I learned something else in the process. You can actually, stuff that you buy there, or at any store for that matter, you can return it at any store. Doesn't matter if you bought it, you know, on the other side of town, you can return it to the one that's on your side of town. So I thought that was actually pretty neat and cool. That's something that I'll show off in another video that should be coming up soon. Actually, the 500 subscribers special, that will make an appearance. I also bought these, some sealed Sony High Fidelity Normal Bias 90-minute cassette tapes. Sealed in the package, which I think is pretty cool. Probably paid too much for those as well, but you know what? Sealed tapes are hard to come by, so while they're cheap, might as well get them. But then, when I got out of there, that's when the problem started, because I noticed that I had another 2 hours to myself, really. And so I decided, you know what? There's a Salvation Army that's in walking distance, as most of them are. It's walking distance away from this store. What the hell? Let's go try it out and see what happens. I wasn't expecting much, because the other two I went to, really the selection wasn't all that great, and the prices weren't all that great either, especially the one that's local to me. The one that's local to me is kind of a crappy store. It's an old, run-down thing. And the stuff there is just overpriced. And it's not really stuff that I'm interested in anyways, but once again, I digress. The instant I walked in there and walked into the electronics section, I saw that. And I thought, oh boy, I am in trouble now. It even came with the original power supply, which was plugged into it. Here's the power supply. It's going to focus on it. There we go. I could not believe it. Now, granted, I probably paid a little bit too much for it. So what is it, you may be asking? Well, this is, when the focus decides it's going to work, an IBM Thinkpad R40. It is the only R-series ThinkPad that I have ever owned, and is one of very few that I've ever really had any experience with. And let me tell you, it's a different experience. It does not have the textured outer coating. It is textured, but it's not the same. It's just not the same material at all. This is a nice rubber. This is just plastic. And there are a couple of other differences as well. The battery does not stick out of the back like it does on the T-Series ThinkPads. It is actually, I believe, right there. That right there would be the battery. And there are a couple of other interesting things with it. I'm not sure why this is recessed like it is. But we've got the headphone and microphone, USB port, blanking plate. Looks like 2 PCMCIA card slots. Not too sure if there's 2 of them in there. There's a cooling fan. There's ports on the back, which usually you don't see on ThinkPads unless it's the power plug or, what have you. PS2, another USB, Ethernet modem, VGA, parallel, power plug, Kensington lock. And there's a ubiquitous standard if you ever saw one. Those have been on computers for years. Got the Ultra Bay, and I actually do have the Ultra Bay hard drive adapter for this, if you'd believe it. I've had that for years, and I've never known what it went to. Well, now I know. Not that I'll ever use it. On the front, you got the pair of speakers, stereo speakers, and the infrared window. Another thing I'd like to point out now is the hinges are smaller on the R60, or the R40, sorry, than they are on the T42. I'm guessing that's true of all R-series versus T-series ThinkPads, but I'm not 100% sure of that. It is an IBM unit. No Lenovo crap here. It does have a keyboard light. I haven't thought to check to see if it was amber or just the regular white, but I'd guess that it's just the regular white. Typical ThinkPad keyboard layout and trackpad. Not really much to say there. Spec-wise, it has a Pentium M 1.4, 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte, I believe, hard drive, and it is running Windows XP. It is the factory build, and we're going to take a look at it in this video, but I'm definitely probably not going to be keeping that installation because, as you will see, it is slightly messed up. Alright, time to fire her up. And the other thing I'd like to point out is this thing has a dead CMOS battery, so when it comes on, it is going to complain bitterly about the fact that the clock settings are lost. Let's go ahead and fire her up. Looks fine. That looks kind of interesting on a grayscale viewfinder. Let's get a new BIOS here. Yep, there you can see it complaining bitterly. Yeah, I'm going to have to put a new CMOS battery in it. Actually, I could take all of the... What's probably going to end up happening is the T42 is going to end up just being a parts donor. Because I don't know if I'm going to devote the time to get the motherboard fixed. Because I don't really care that much. Oops. So we'll just set the date and time to something bogus. I don't really care. Put it into this year. How about that? We can take a look at some of the system specs. You can see Pentium M 1.4, 512 megs of RAM, a couple other pieces of information. I should probably update the BIOS. We could do that later. I need to clean the lens on this camera. I think while we're waiting for this to boot, which is going to take a very, very long time. Found this out in the store. I spent a good 20 minutes waiting for it to get to a point where it would even try to load the operating system. Yeah, it took a long time. I spent a copious amount of time with that. And then I spent even more time trying to get it to work, too. And I just gave up on that because I didn't really care. I wasn't going to keep the Windows installation anyways. So there's the post. You can see it's complaining that it was not shut down properly. We apologize for the inconvenience, but Windows did not start successfully. Not that anybody cares. Watch how slow this is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the camera lens, and we'll be done with that. Yeah, look at that. Oh, that's bad. Right. Yep, the hard drive light is on solid. Never a good sign. Not sure if it's bad or not. I don't think so, because it does eventually boot. Probably just needs a little bit of TLC on the Windows installed, which I might give it. I don't know yet. I haven't really decided if I'm going to run Windows Server 2008 on this from the other hard drive, or if I'm going to leave it alone and just run this build of Windows XP, because it is the original factory build of Windows XP. Come on. Seems that whenever I see an original factory build on a system this old, that it's just unbelievably screwed. Okay, it looks like we're actually getting somewhere now. It's been quite a bit, as you might be able to tell by the camera time on your screen. Oh wow. Yeah, this is definitely the original build. I'll have to try and save some of it at least. I might just reinstall Windows XP, and customize it to be like the original build, but there is some interesting stuff on here that we're going to take a look at in a minute. Now, there's no real what I would consider to be private data. There's some save states for some games like Halo on here, and there's definitely some remnants of what could possibly be some, private information. Certainly is not fast at booting. The camera is apparently not going to cooperate. Well, I was trying anyways. Interesting choice of background. You can see, if we look up here, we've got Norton Security Scan and Microsoft Security Essentials, both of which were probably catching absolutely nothing. Project 64, which caught my eye immediately because that is a Nintendo 64 emulator, so that's kind of interesting. I'll have to save that. Not that I really do much with those kinds of emulators anyways. I'd rather play the actual physical hardware. Launch Internet Exploder. I believe that's even been updated to IE8 based on the logo. Something called Glary Utilities. An old version of CCleaner. Something called Defraggler. I've never heard of that. We've got a very, very, very old version of Google Chrome. I have not seen that logo in years. Of course, if the camera would focus, I might be able to show something. Oh, look at this. Microsoft Security Essentials isn't monitoring your computer because the program's service stopped. You should restart it now. Click Start Now to start the service. Well, don't mind if I do, really. Not that it'll work much, because the hard drive is overworked here. Based on the last time the virus definitions were updated, this computer appears to have last seen use in April of 2011. But let's start taking a look at some of the interesting things here, if the computer will cooperate. It was working a little bit better when I was testing it at work earlier, but it's definitely going to need a new Windows installation because this is ridiculously slow. Okay, so I've pulled up basically all that I thought was really interesting off the top of my head. There's probably undoubtedly more on here, but what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm going to save this Windows installation as a disk image, and then I'm going to just reinstall Windows from scratch. It might be Windows XP, it might be something else. I don't know. I don't have a Vista machine. I might see if running Windows Vista on this is really going to be as much of a painstaking process as possible. Or I might just put Server 2008 on it, which is basically Vista anyways, but I digress. This is a recycle bin. It's very clear to me that somebody was very enthralled with the presence of Microsoft Security Essentials on the computer. Not sure what the deal is with that, because I'm pretty sure they would have put it on the system anyways. Here's what's in Project 64. Got some various things here. I don't know what this is. I might have to find out. Got some things here, some games presumably. Mom's Wrap. Got some save files, the actual Project 64 emulator itself. And that's really all that's that interesting in here. Unless there's stuff in here, third-party plugins, cheat codes, blah blah blah. Looks like that all just belongs to the program. In the My Documents folder, we've got a very curiously named folder here up at the top. I've opened it. It appears to be completely empty. In the Downloads folder, we've got something called gusetup.exe, which is for the Glary Utilities. Okay, the last thing that's really interesting is what we've got in the My Pictures folder. Now, the first thing I believe might be a personal photo, so I'm going to not share that. But the thing underneath it is certainly odd and can attest to finding interesting things with computers where people don't delete their data. That's what it is. I found that moderately amusing, actually. And a couple of my coworkers were wondering why the hell I was laughing. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to shut this off now because I think I've pretty much exhausted what I can do with it. The battery is stone cold. I'm going to have to see about rebuilding it or getting a new battery, because I can't really replace the battery with the one that's in another computer, unfortunately, because I don't have one. Excuse me. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you have any comments, do feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then, see how long it takes to shut down. It wasn't that long at all, really.